right.
So good afternoon, and thanks for coming. Please excuse a little bit of kind of awkwardness as we start to try to figure out how best to record these kind of panel session discussions and kind of figure it out as we go along, because ultimately we want to be able to always post these types of events, questions, things like that on our website. And that's what will happen with this particular panel discussion as well. So welcome to this North 12th Street Mural Project panel discussion. The important kind of the reason that we gathered everybody here to have this was, of course, the request for qualifications is ending on Monday. And I wanted to make sure that artists knew, and community members and business owners in the area really know about the kind of broad overview of like everything that's going on here. There's really a lot going on along this North 12th Street corridor. So let me start by introducing myself, Donald Gensler, project manager with Art and Public Places for the Sacramento Metropolitan Arts Commission, City of Sacramento. To my right here, Celia Nunez, who is the program manager for federal programs with SHRA. And to her right, Edward Lewis. Edward is associate project manager with Urban Strategies. And then to his right, Rachel Hazelgood. Rachel is also with the City of Sacramento. She is a senior development project manager with the Office of Economic Development. We're going to kind of leave the intros at that. They'll be talking independently throughout, and we'll certainly introduce a little bit more about who they are and what their role has been throughout the process. But I wanted to make sure that you guys kind of knew what the representation was here. So now that we've kind of briefly introduced ourselves, we just wanted to kind of get a sense in the room. If I'm just going to ask so we can have a sense. One, we want to make sure everybody signs in. But two, if you could kind of raise your hand if you live kind of directly in this river district area. If you're in the river district. All right, awesome, great. And then if you live kind of more Alkali Flat, Mansion Flat area, okay, terrific, awesome. And then and then also anybody from out of town that's kind of visiting, and terrific. Davis, yes, absolutely, Davis. So no, this is just really good for us to have a sense of where folks are from, and then and I know we've got a really a nice mix here of artists and community members and business owners, and we're just thrilled that everybody came out. Again, this is in some ways a little bit of an experiment, just to see how these types of panel discussions and information sessions go, and if they're ultimately helpful for people. So this one is obviously being recorded and then will be uploaded to our website as quickly as possible, hopefully by tomorrow, but fingers crossed. Without any further ado, the format here, and I apologize, the one thing I was like, did not print out an agenda. So next time, note to self. So let me give you a quick overview of the format. The four of us are going to be kind of doing some short presentations. That'll last just about an hour. And then we'll have a question and answer session. There's a mic over there we'll turn on because I want to make sure that your questions are recorded. So if you could, make sure if you have any questions, go up to the mic. We'll just kind of do by hands, and then you kind of go up or in a line, however we want to do that. If you need to leave at 2 or whatever, I get it. Or if you have to go, it's fine. We'd love for you to stay for the whole thing, and I think really the question and answer session will be a great opportunity as well. So let me jump in to just introduce this project. This happened in kind of collaboration with a number of different city departments. And we were approached as a Metropolitan Arts Commission to say, hey, can you work with us to engage artists in kind of community and neighborhood development and community and neighborhood kind of interaction. And so we're actually working, and this project is funded through a federally funded grant for the Choice Neighborhoods grant program. And a main part of it is neighborhood and community involvement throughout the process. But of course, as many of you know, we also can have just an incredible kind of artwork that comes out of that. I mean, it's really, from my own personal experience, and then for many of you that I know, the dialogue that happens in that kind of collaborative moment between community and artists is really something unique and something kind of really to be applauded and get excited about. So that's what we're hoping to happen here. This corridor project also has been going on for some time and isn't just the art component. It's also, a complete streets component, infrastructure changes, all of new housing happening here, lots of different things, a new RT station. And we're going to talk about that. We've really got experts who have been working on this for some time, I think almost since 2011, to talk about that. And then the last thing I want to say is just, this is a chance for really, the way I've always thought about it, is that the art becomes the kind of glue that helps to hold all of that together and really link and unify neighborhoods and communities to the work that the city is doing along this corridor. So with that said, I'd like to kind of start here with Celia, and I think I'll hit the buttons, or you can. Yeah, I'll hit the buttons, and we'll go for the next slide. And there we go.
All right. So my role in today is to give you just about an overview, some background about why we're here, and a little bit about what the vision is. So we are talking about the Twin Rivers. This is the Twin Rivers Public Housing Community. We're here, and the kind of the long project name is the Twin Rivers Transit-Oriented Development, because we're going to do a transit-oriented development, mixed use here, and the light rail station. And so I'm going to kind of give you an overview. Next slide, please. So this is an aerial of the overall river district. It is a mix of a little bit of residential, both multifamily like here and at Cannery Place, and some single family off the Basler and Dreher off the 16th, and then just a variety of businesses. So you have some warehousing, a little light manufacturing, some retail like the restaurant, supply stores, just a really big mix, and some historic buildings as well along 16th Street. But the focus for what I do from the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency is our 218 public housing complex that's here. And in the early to mid 2007-ish, we knew that we needed to what we call reposition, redevelop our public housing sites. So this is one of them, along with a couple others. And we needed to partner with the folks out here, the business and residents, and the city to figure out what that is. And so the city in the early or late 2011, if I'm correct, Rachel, adopted a new specific plan, which really set the tone for the transformation of this entire area that you see in red. Next slide. As I said, in 2011, SHRA looked to a new program that came out of the Obama administration called the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative. And they are providing planning funds and implementation funds. But it's all centered around sort of three main objectives to transform public housing and other affordable housing sites. And so one, of course, is the core of transforming the housing into more livable. It could be a renovation, or it could be, in this case, clearing, tearing all down, and building all new. So here, this property was built in the early, I think it was 1942, and so you've got a mix, mostly single story, and then there's two-story. Those were built a little later, but they're all small. They're the inside, as well as the infrastructure is really old. So not all of them even have air conditioning. The internal system, so the electricity is underpowered. All of that stuff just doesn't make for the best place to live. So of course, back to transforming the housing. The other piece is not only transforming the housing, but helping the folks that are living in them transform as well and change and grow and improve. And that may be education, jobs, and health are sort of the big pieces. And then within the context, you also have to change the neighborhood. So in many cities, and just like here, the neighborhood needs improvement as well. So rather than just changing and building new housing, you really need to look at the fabric, how it can also improve the neighborhood and how the neighborhood can provide resources for those folks in housing. So again, it's around housing, families, and the neighborhood. And all interwoven in this is you have to have the community involved. And that's not only the neighborhood, but the residents. So we've been working with the community since 2011 when we first applied for the grant, the planning grant, and then when we got the grant in 2015. So that's going to be the theme is community engagement, engagement, engagement. So next slide.
Awesome.
These are our partners, the city and the county, Urban Strategies, and McCormick Baron Salazar, who is our developer. Next slide, please. So just at the real high level, what's really important in this neighborhood, we have really diverse residents and business owners. And so it's really important that they all need to be engaged. And they're all, everybody's different. And so you have to be able to engage people in different ways. So with that said, we have, of course, our public housing residents. Later, there's also built later is Cannery Place, which is up off of Richards, another affordable housing property. Then we have the Basler Dreyer neighborhood, which are two small streets which have single-family residential. And so they are a community that needs to be engaged. Of course, we have, in this neighborhood, we have a variety of homeless services and homeless folks that are in the neighborhood that need to be engaged as well. And business owners, property owners, and then immediately to the south, we have neighborhoods like Mansion Flats and Alkali Flat that also need to be engaged in part of this process. And of course, not only part of it is our public housing residents are low income, and so that's also how you need to think and understand in interacting with folks. I think that's it. We'll go on to the next slide.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I go back?
Yep.
So as part of the planning process that was started in 2011 and took about a year and a half, we identified a variety of things that you should know as the challenges. So isolated, this housing development is isolated. There are no neighborhood schools. Children have to go across the American River in our bus to other schools. There are limited transit options, so that's why we're doing a light rail station. It's car oriented, and many of our families don't have access to cars. So how do we help them access the rest of the neighborhood and the city? There's a concentration of homeless providers and persons, and there's a decline in financial resources for this property here. Next, sorry, keep going. Tell me if I'm going too long. As we went through this process, we had community meetings, we had charrettes, and created this vision for the community. They created this vision, to create a dynamic and vibrant community that plugs the area and its people back into the city, physically, economically, and socially. All right, next slide. So I'm just going to hit highlights of what that. As part of creating a new neighborhood, we want to have a mix of other incomes, market rate and other affordable. So that's really important. So there's going to be a total of 487 units here, as well as across the street at the future light rail station. We're going to reconnect the neighborhoods to the downtown. We're creating this transit-oriented development, let's see where else, and trying to have those rich amenities. And I'm not going to go into those, but we'll keep going. So just one last, keep going. One last thing is that there are just a few families that are left. Most have been relocated, but as I said, there are just a few families left. So here, what you see on this side, on your left, is the new grid pattern. On the it's essentially 6 blocks with the new centered around a new park. It's about a 1-acre park, and The housing, most of it is garden style, so 2 stories, but on the corner of Dos Rios and Richards will be a 3-story, and that will be a little bit more dense property. Let's see if I've got anything else.
It's about a minute. About
Okay.
a minute left.
So I am almost done. Next slide. So neighborhood, we have a variety of improvements in the neighborhood, and I'm going to let Rachel talk more about them. So we're going to keep going. The next slide, and then I'm going to hand it over to
health and wellness, economic mobility, education, and also policy in regards to policy influence and community safety. And for example, for as education, we have about 15 school districts in Sacramento, and with our families being relocated throughout the city and county of Sacramento, we're currently working with 10 different school districts in regards to our 207 school-aged children K through 12. So that's the undertaking within itself, working with 10 different school districts when transportation is a challenge. Regards to jobs, we work closely with Sacramento Employment Training Agency in regards to job opportunities throughout the city, with the focus being on 5 areas: transportation, construction, government, food service and hospitality, and medical, thank you. Medical, with regards to all the hospitals here in the Sacramento area. So we work with our families, and we work closely with family resource centers, community-based organizations, and local agencies throughout the city and county of Sacramento to keep our families connected. As you mentioned, with our families relocating throughout the city and county of Sacramento, we have divided the city into 3 zones: North Zone, South Zone, and East Zone, with each of those zones having a case manager assigned to work with about 68 to 70 families or households directly to get them reconnected in services within the geographical area. Why? We have had families who lived in Twin Rivers, which is 77 years old, 40 plus years. So some folks really don't leave this community. When you think about, I would liken it to like a Bermuda Triangle, when you have the north area, Richards Boulevard, high traffic, 4 lanes, the east side, 12th Street, high traffic, and on the west side, Dos Rios Street or Boulevard. Dos Rios Street was industrial, so a lot of big vehicles in and out of that area. And then you have this community here. It's a food desert. So that's a challenge within itself, and especially with transportation. Our families have to go out a couple of different buses or RTs to get to a grocery store to get groceries and come back, because that can be a daunting task itself. So we work with the families in those areas, especially with schools, connecting our families to make sure that our children are doing well in school. In 3 areas: they're ready for school, or ready for kindergarten, they're proficient in the school, and they're graduating with career opportunities, whether the job opportunities are going to 4-year university or any of the 4 community colleges here in Sacramento. So we also provide monthly community, CNI community meetings for our families in each of the zones. So we have three separate meetings each month to keep our families connected, informed, and engaged what's going on, not only with this project, but what's going on in the greater city and county of Sacramento. Job opportunities, training opportunities, school opportunities, community services, and events throughout the city and county of Sacramento. And then again, we work with the schools directly to make sure our children are attending school and have their educational needs being met. In regards to case manager, working with teachers, parent-teacher conferences, after-school activities, tutorial services, out-of-school activities in the summer months, and connecting our children with regards to summer programs in the summer months to keep them engaged and involved and active throughout that period of time. We also health and wellness work with Samuel Mary University, which is a nursing school here in Sacramento, and we provide health and wellness programs for our families to keep them knowledgeable of health and wellness, in regards to things they can do to have healthier lifestyles, eat healthier, cook healthier, and have a safe and healthier community. So we work with that within our What Every Heartbeat Is Life program, our WELL program, which is a 6-week training program. So we provide a variety of services, and we work very closely with our partners. Family Resource Center, Birth and Beyond, and family activities they provide, Greater Sacramento Urban League, and providing services they provide for our residents as well. Promise Zone through the Sacramento Redevelopment Agency. So we try to keep our families connected with programs, activities, educational services throughout the city and county of Sacramento. Mm-hmm. We also, for safety, we work with our resident council as well, our governing body on site, resident-led and governed bodies to kind of keep the residents informed of what's going on as well. We're that connectivity between city council and board of supervisor meetings, also with the Sacramento Housing Redevelopment, Housing Commission meetings, and resident advisory boards. So we have a governing body here that we work with also to keep the residents informed and engaged in connectivity with activities so they know what's going on, the big picture as well as the smaller picture in regards to how it may impact them directly or indirectly. So our goal for us, urban strategy is to keep our families stable and thriving. To do that, we have to keep them engaged. So we have to engage, empower, and educate them to keep them in the knowing of what's going on with the process and the project itself. Because when it's all said and done and the demolition and the infrastructure and the construction is done and this building come back to what the renditions you have seen, we also will work with those families to help them reoccupy the new community and be prepared and ready to function normally or as anyone else coming into that community. So that's kind of our role as urban strategies. We will continue that role until we successfully have families come back, which their choice to come back or not. But we'll keep them engaged throughout this 2.5 year process to ensure they know what's going on, whether it's from City Council, Board of Supervisors, the Housing Commission, or timelines in regards to projects itself, but also keeping them engaged in regards to job opportunity, educational program and services, and things they can do to keep engaged in their new geographical area until they relocate. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Rachel Hazelwood, and I work for the city in the Economic Development Department. And I've been working in the River District for, gosh, over 12 years. So we've been getting to this point. You look out the street, and if you can go to the next, this is the area we're talking about today. This stretch of North 12th Street from the river basically to round to the end of the UP tunnels. So yeah, river.
Yeah, we were really.
And then down to the, yeah. So, and then if you could go to the next slide. And the door when you came here today, I don't have to tell you guys, it's sure not beautiful and attractive, and it's very car centric. The cars whiz by. There's over 20,000 vehicles that go down this street every single day. So yes, this is not the pedestrian friendly, transit oriented corridor today. But we've been working really hard for a long time, and we've been writing grants and seeking money from a lot of different sources, and we've been pretty successful. So projects take a long time to do. It's a slow process, but we're successful with funding the light rail station. We just put in an application for money for the Twin Rivers housing, and the money that we're using here, as Donald mentioned, it is funds that are federal funds that we got for doing improvements in the area. So that's kind of what we do. We do a patchwork quilt of funding in order to make these things happen. Can we go to the next? So when we started out, and actually over the years, we have had a number of community outreach events. The one that kind of influenced our projects that we're talking to you today about was one that we had a consultant that we were able to contract with who helped us to develop placemaking ideas. And let me tell you, when we started out, I sat around the table with one of my colleagues and we said, what is placemaking? That sounds like, I think that's what we want to do, but what is it? So we actually Googled it like any good self-serving person would do, and the definition was really lovely, and Donald's going to go into it some more, but we were like, that's it. That's what we want to do. We want to create a neighborhood. We want to create an identity and a feeling that you want to be in that location. You stand out on North 12th Street today, you don't want to be there for any more longer than you have to be. And it was important why we set this meeting here, because we need you to know and to feel the neighborhood's challenges. And we set a lofty goal for the artist who takes this commission on, because it is transformative, the glue. We do hope to really stimulate some great ideas and to have the community engaged. And the community engagement side is why we had Edward give you that detail and background, because he's going to be your link to the residents at Twin Rivers who are scattered all around. So we have a lot of different resources, Donald, I do, and Celia, that we can help the artists to engage the local community. We have over here Sean Wright from Alkali Flat Mansion Flat. He's the president of the association, and I saw just walking in Patty Kleinknecht with the River District Property and Business Improvement District, which is the business community. So we have resources to help you with that. I don't want you to get daunted by that task. So at this event, it came as a result of it. We came up with some recommendations. The residents came up with a list of 5 recommendations, and then dealing with safety, pedestrians, and Edward mentioned the healthy foods and this being a food desert, and that continues to be an issue. The cleanliness of the area and places to play and explore. And the next slide. The consultant further fleshed this out, and so he came up with this list of recommendations, which we've tried to honor and to implement as much as possible. And there's still a lot more that we can do, but this is the things that we would hope that would guide you as you're looking through at options. We want to engage the residents. We want to really look at the diversity of this community and the amenities and the wonderful rivers, and there's quite a rich history once you get into it. So we want you to know all about that. So we developed some programs and projects that these are funded. So I'll go ahead and go through it so you can get a little excited and see where we're heading. So next slide. The first thing we're doing is this is North 12th today. We're going to transform this into a bicycle-friendly road. Now, today you can't travel north on North 12th Street unless you're walking your bike on the sidewalk or you're breaking the law. So, next slide. So we envision this change of a cycle track. We're going to take out a lane, and that sounds like a crazy idea on a 20,000 car street, right? Well, no, actually it will slow the traffic down, and that is one of our goals of this project. So, but as one of my esteemed colleagues has said, if we only do a cycle track, we have not succeeded in what we're trying to do to transform this street, which is why there's more. So next slide. So we have, we're looking at connectivity. One of the things we've heard a lot about is people don't know how to get to the bike trail. Here they're probably, this is a community most connected to bike trails of probably any community around, and yet people don't know how to get to it. So we're going to do some wayfinding, and they're going to be geared not just for cars, they're going to be geared for pedestrians and bicyclists too. So next. We want to create a gateway art element, and this is art to come. So note to yourselves if you're interested in more of a statue type of a thing, and these are just illustrative. There's no knowledge of it. We're thinking at this point where the confluence of North 12th and North 16th, there's a empty lot there now. It's just to the north of it. There's a little remainder parcel, and we're thinking that would be a great spot. There's flexibility there. If there's a better location, we're certainly open to it. So that will follow when Donald's finished with getting this contract. We've got more to give him. So next slide. The light rail station is going to be on that same triangle-shaped property. Actually, if you go out here and look across the street, you'll see the empty lot, and it's going to be there. And we got the infrastructure funded, which was extremely expensive because to build a light rail station, we had to straighten the track out, and the infrastructure there is very old, so it all needs to be replaced. So it is a crazy dollar amount, but we were successful in writing a grant that had 1 million partners on it and a lot of resident participation, and we got $17 million to do that. So, I mean, that is just like, yeah, so it was really an achievement. And so honestly, if we did not get that money, I have no idea how we were going to fund that light rail station. So it just is a big whew. So, and it's going to be beautiful. It was designed by an architectural team in Portland, hence the millennial dude who just looks so Portland to me. I don't know about you guys. I could take him out, put him in any other one, and I would say, oh, Portland. So, but it is going to be a beautiful station. We have more fundraising to do to get the bling on the station. Right now we have a platform and very minimal amenities. So we're continuing to write grants. Okay, next slide. So, and then this is the existing underpass, which is the subject of today's discussion. And we acknowledge this is a very, very challenging area. Right now there's a large group of loiterers that are on the north side of it, as John calls it, dope slope. I don't think, my suspicion is that they're not homeless, they're doing other activities. So that is the police department is going to be fencing that area off and hopefully getting it under control before too much more time goes by. So that we are definitely not planning on the artist having to deal with that. But this is the area that we've talked about. I wanted to get you inspired. We want lighting to be part of this. Next slide. So just to show what lighting does, I mean, it's amazing. We had the mural there before. It was heavily graffitied. We didn't put enough money in the budget to be able to put protective coatings or enough maintenance money in it. So we're hoping, the next time this is second time is going to be the charm, you guys. So we are going to take care of both of those things so that this is going to have a longer life, and we really want to aim for at least 10 years and hopefully maybe 15 life out of this mural. And we're also looking for other locations, not just here, and we want to engage the business community, see if we can get some more walls. So next slide. So that's where we are. Actually, it's not even that good today. I'll just be honest with you guys. But that's the blank canvas. And so I like these two little bullets at the bottom there, which were from the recommendations. Tells the stories of the River District people and places, and celebrate the diversity of the people and places. And as you do the mural, I really want to challenge you to the engagement part is very important, and then just thinking of how to include all of that wonderful diversity into this mural, and we will help. Thank you. And now Donald's going to get us inspired.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. So I want to mention a couple things before we get started. There's only one lead artist or lead artist team. That's just the idea. It's really awesome the amount of excitement for community arts and community and neighborhood focused kind of art projects, collaborative art projects that I've kind of personally felt here in Sacramento. And I really urge all of you all, whether you become the lead artist or part of the lead artist team or not, there's going to be multiple opportunities for artists to be involved throughout the process. But what I want to, and so I just say that because it's just so important in a community arts focused project to recognize that we have so many different voices that can come together. And what our hope is that we can have a lead artist or an artist team that will lead and really create that unified idea, that space. Now, with that said, I want to back up a little bit and just talk a little bit about the idea of a corridor. And we started this when Rachel first started talking. Rachel and Celia first started talking to me about this project. We were really just focused on the underpass, and so when we started to look at it, and I thought, we've got to look at this entire corridor as a space to move through and to interact with as we come into the city. And they were like, of course, that's exactly what we've been doing, and that's what we need to do. And so with that, this is creative placemaking, right? But this is creative placemaking in sometime between 17,000 and 15,000 BC. This is in Lascaux, France. This is the idea that people came together for one reason or another, ceremonially or whatever, to kind of create this space. And creative placemaking to engage and develop this corridor in particular, but then we're also looking to other corridors. I'm not going to speak to those today, but I want to kind of whet your appetite and get you excited about this. As an overview, I want you to also understand something that's really important. I think this quote from Jane Jacobs is really fits well. No concentration of residents, how high it may be, is sufficient if diversity is suppressed or thwarted by other insufficiencies. And this is critical, right? So community arts is all about this kind of collaboration between artists and many different groups and many different people involved. And as you'll see, that really is what creative placemaking is about. as well. So I'm gonna go through 4 things here quickly. I don't know if you've noticed, I'm the keeper of the time, so if I'm looking at my watch, it's not because I want to get out of here. I do want to also be cognizant of your schedules today. So we're going to go through these 4 different areas: creative placemaking. I'm going to give some definitions and some background about what that is. Reflections on the creative economy, because this really will change the economy potentially of the corridor. And those of you who are potentially business owners or involved with a business district here, I hope you can get excited about this as well. Placemaking examples. I'm going to show you a couple examples, just about 3 different artists that I personally know who have done some projects, and I threw a couple of my own in there just for fun. And then North 12th Street Underpass Mural Project. We'll just look at that real quick. So those are our 4 things. We're starting for number 1. So I'm not going to read this definition. You can read it yourself, but I'm going to pull out what was really important to me. Partners from public, private, nonprofit, and community sectors strategically shape the physical and social character of a neighborhood, town, city, or region around arts and cultural activities. This is key. It's not about the city coming in, sending out an RFQ, and we're going to plop down an art project here. It's about multiple partners. That's what you're seeing here. That's what we're totally stoked and excited about, seeing all of you here today. It's multiple partners working together in a collaborative environment. By the way, this quote is from Anne Marcuson and Anne Godwin. Really, those 2 women that coined this term creative placemaking. And people have kind of taken that and run with it, and that's terrific. Many of us were doing creative placemaking a long time ago. We didn't necessarily call it creative placemaking, and that's cool. But I did want you to know, I think they wrote a terrific paper. I happen to bring a copy there. You can kind of take a look at it. It's on the internet available. NEA white paper. But it's important to kind of understand where that kind of idea comes from. That's the paper. So corridor, area or stretch of land identified by a specific common characteristic or purpose. Webster also has this other thing where political deals are done in the hallways of state capitol buildings, which I thought was really interesting. But here, this is what we're focused on. This stretch of land where you have this kind of common characteristic or purpose. We don't know what that is really yet. And that's the key. I mean, the artist will be there to kind of work with community, work with all of you, and work with people, business owners and the like all around here, and different stakeholders to kind of develop what is this corridor. And that's why we have such a kind of rigorous design process for this project as well. Very quickly, NEA Art Town grants. This one in particular, actually I spent some time working in Little Rock. They developed this whole kind of creative corridor. I want just to show you that there's a number of cities working on these types of corridor projects involving the arts. A little bit of definitions here: path, edges, districts, nodes, landmarks. We're really talking about these paths, but everything else kind of plays a role too. So I may use some of this vocabulary, and I wanted you guys to kind of understand a little bit of where this is coming from. It's important that we have a sense of this kind of these kind of definitions. Placemaking's been around, right? I mean, this is what I was talking about before, but corridors have been an economic, vital, important part of a city's growth, right? We're looking at really driving the creative economy, which is part of this larger economy, an important part of it, and one, in fact, that we want to kind of be able to register through metrics and evaluation systems that will be part of this project. So we'll be starting kind of fairly early on, trying to start this and see how that works to kind of evaluate what we're doing. But this, if anybody's been to the Forum, in Rome, you see this square that's full of all kinds of commerce and things like that back in history, but also art. Our creative economy, so our cultural plan, recently adopted by City Council for the City of Sacramento, and one of the main tenets of this is to celebrate and infuse all Sacramento neighborhoods and districts with art and culture. So guys, that's what we're doing. We're implementing the plan. You guys are part of that. We're part of that opportunity to bring really art and culture into all facets, really, of city government, but also hopefully enriching our neighborhoods and communities. So this is the idea. So I thought this was nice. It's about getting artists and designers, community groups, arts research groups, cultural affairs groups out of their silos and into the neighborhoods and regions. I put this slide in also because this is a good time to talk about my personal approach to this process, and I want to make sure that everybody is on board. Everybody's voice is important here. But if you think about it in terms of like a scale here, if the community is just hammering, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you got to do this, and we're like, and who cares about the artist's voice? Then this scale is going to be uneven. And likewise, if the artist is like, you know what, I'm going to do my own thing here, and I kind of not, I'll listen a little bit to you guys, but I'm just doing my own, then it also is not working. But when you get to that kind of mode where you have real kind of sense of collaboration and dialogue, I think something kind of magical comes out of that. So that's the premise I want to kind of start with here that we're thinking about, that it's not a successful project if just one group is just hounding the other group to say you have to do what we're doing here. So we have to find a way to kind of pull that out of people. One of my projects, I just wanted to kind of show this, just in terms of creating space, this project involved about 200 to 500 different participants throughout the city, and this is in Philadelphia. And then I also worked with prisoners at Graterford Prison. We're really talking about an issue of violence. I mean, this is a 300 by 25 foot long mural. Talking about violence smack dab in the center of, close to the center, Broad and Spring Garden in Philadelphia. It's a difficult subject. We had the Philadelphia Inquirer editorial board involved, was writing about it. John Tim Payne was writing stories on it. And we were going back and forth and having this dialogue in the city about a real issue of violence in our city. So I say that just because it was a difficult subject matter, but it was something that I thought was really important. Many of us thought it was important, and it became a kind of really powerful voice of discussion there in Philadelphia at that time. And it's still there now. This is another quote. You'll notice I've kind of dotted things with a few quotes here and there. Like a standing wave in front of a rock and a fast-moving stream, a city is a pattern in time. So the key here is that I really want everybody to get the sense that this is part of the growth and development of the city. This is a good thing. It's a good thing that a city grows, but doesn't grow kind of separately from its neighborhood, its communities, the people that live there, but kind of in collaboration with. And that's what we're kind of after. And I think in many ways the artists can play that role. Because what we'll see here is these guys have been working on this stuff. Trust me, I've seen the things that they've been working since 2011. We're going to take about a 2-year period, and people will start to see things happen really fast. That's something that we're just able to do in the arts. We could just make things, and we start to see that happen. So it's changing. The city's changing. It's rushing water, but we need to recognize that with that change, we can kind of work with people in that process. A little bit of the metrics. I'm not going to get into that too much. This is some metrics from Metro Arts. We want to get kind of better at kind of looking at this, but some of the metrics of construction project jobs. The arts is a part of this, right? So jobs are created through these types of projects and other projects that then come out of these types of projects and programs. And time for another discussion, but something just to give you some thoughts. Another little shameless plug here, because I want you to see another project that I'd done actually with my class at the University of Pennsylvania at the time, and was really just, this was a much more kind of condensed neighborhood focused project with mural on one side, mural on the other side, and this kind of space in between. So this was Holding Grandmother's Quilt, no longer there, but it transformed, I thought, that part of the neighborhood in Mantua at that time. It was an important time in there. And also, Mrs. Jones was part of that project. She's the woman, the kind of matriarch that you can see there making the quilt, the kids on the other side. There was an interaction, a dialogue. When we first came here, I was working with Jane Golden, who runs the Mural Arts program, and it was just filled with tires and trash and needles and all this kind of stuff. And it completely transformed it. The neighborhood really took over this space and created this community garden space around the mural. But it was because we worked collaboratively, we worked together throughout the process. I'm going to show you 3 different projects. The first one, this pair, Haas and Hahn, Dutch artists, they did a project in Germantown. And just to give you some sense of what's possible, right? Anything's possible on the table here. But Hassan Han did this idea of kind of connecting with these community members and creating this space through painting. People helped in that process, and they literally just used this idea of color and shape throughout to really connect this entire corridor. I don't know how well you can see it there, but that whole corridor is just painted. And it took areas that were somewhat blighted, somewhat closed down, and it just kind of gave it some life, in collaboration with the people that live there and work. Another project of theirs in Rio de Janeiro, where again they're working with folks in this is really a favela, and they're working with the people there to kind of develop and change these spaces. And as you can see, I mean, I think it just really it changes the space in a remarkable way. Another project, actually Philadelphia-focused project. Steve, a friend of mine, and he did this project in 2010. He and I did a residency together in Dublin, and 5 years previous. And we were sitting there after a kind of, very kind of intense day of debate and discussion. The Irish love their debate, so Steve and I got into it a little bit. And so at the end of the day, we're having a beer and we're talking. He says, I really would love to do a project with kind of words at the rooftops. And so 5 years later, he made it happen in Philadelphia in collaboration with lots of different folks there. And so he did this project, A Love Letter for You, where he took little snippets of these kind of poems that he got from different people throughout Philadelphia. And this is the SEPTA line. It's their light rail line. And all along the SEPTA line are these different kind of, word-oriented pieces. Some of them just kind of sweet, hold tight, that type of thing. Others, legs tired, back sore. I mean, or this one, I got the bread, I got the butter, I got the milk, I got the blame. This is, if you know Steve, this is totally him. So the reason I really thought that this was good to see is because the aesthetic is different in each one. So connectivity, like corridors, creative place, doesn't mean that you kind of make everything look similar like Hassan Han. You could, and that's, but you also could just have this idea that something runs through that corridor and in some way links up these pieces. And I think that's really important for you to see. And also another artist who actually I don't know personally, but have really been always impressed by his work, both in corridors, but also just in general, and the way that he has kind of worked specifically with community throughout his projects. So this is JR, a French artist. This was a piece that, again, these portraits, and then as you can see, a kind of whole series of portraits there on the side of the building. Another one with his Women Are Heroes project in Rio. And this I just thought was terrific. Also, all these just pieces of faces of these women in Rio. And he put together a terrific book and film on this project as well. Again, creating a space there by using his art. One thing I want to point out also is this project is limited to murals. I had to kind of create some, parameters here. We didn't have to do murals, but for this particular project, we're focusing in on the underpass and then some other walls that could be added to that along the corridor. We're mural focused. As Rachel was mentioning, there are other projects coming up down the pipeline that will involve sculpture and all kinds of other kind of artistic disciplines as well. So don't think that, although I am a muralist, have worked in that field, don't think that we're just focusing on two-dimensional work. It just, for this particular project, that is where our focus is. There's still a possibility for a gateway feature, and RT will have sculptural work as well. I did want you to see this just because I happened to be here in France briefly at this time, and when he did this project, and this also just the kind of phenomenal quality of placemaking. So JR did this project where you're all familiar with the Untitled pyramid at the Louvre, and so there was when it was done, it was kind of a big scandal, and how is this changing history and culture and everything. And of course that's what the architect was after in some ways too, to separate from the historic structure of the building. So JR had this idea that you could then make that disappear. And so what he did was he took this historic photo of the building, put it onto the pyramid, and then if you stand in the exact right place, that's what you see. And so he makes the pyramid disappear. And so literally, if you stand in this one spot, everything comes together. And although it's black and white, it has this. And I thought it was really kind of lovely. I mean, like also the fact that this is historic photograph, so that this is kind of like pull and push between history and contemporary, and what's there and not there, and all kinds of things to think about. I just say that because the power of an image, you know, for a space, and this was a temporary project, can be just mind-blowing. The phenomenal quality of that can be incredible too. So beyond the community interaction, which is going to be really vibrant and important part of this, we also want the work itself to just really move people and touch them in maybe some unexpected ways. So, and then just to finish up here in the last couple minutes, you know, this involves District 3 and District 4. Councilmember Hanson and Councilmember Harris are both very involved in the process here. They're really excited about this process and the development of the corridor. And so we went through, we did our art plan for this project, and out of that, this corridor space that we're looking at has so many different possibilities. Again, those of you who are business owners who, if this even remotely sounds interesting to you and you own one of these buildings along here, please reach out to me, either grab my card or what. I want to start to engage with the business owner to figure out who would like to be involved in different ways, or if you know somebody that owns a building that you think would be really interested in being involved. One group that we know is going to be a stakeholder is Loaves and Fishes, specifically Mustard Seed. And so we're going to work, specifically the artist, one of the stakeholders is going to work directly with Mustard Seed School, which is a school for children experiencing homelessness. And this is a really important thing because this is a population that is here in this area. As well, SHRA, Edward specifically, will really be at the heart of helping us to connect with different stakeholder and community groups throughout the process. But there's still more to be done. This is literally, I feel like, just the beginning of the project. So any of you go, boy, man, they've been doing a lot. Yeah, we've been doing a lot, but we're bringing in the artists now. This is where it all starts. We've looked at some alternative locations. Let me show you a couple of photos. Oh, the Underpass. I did want to say a couple words about that. So the Underpass was done initially by two women artists. Contagious Color was a wonderful project. It was only meant to be there really temporarily for 2 years. And then it just stayed until we kind of figured out how we were going to deal with it. The difference here is we've already kind of got the information to purchase the type of anti-graffiti sealant that we'll have. We've got a maintenance plan in place. All of this is going to be part of the project. So I wanted you all to know, especially community members, to know that these murals are part of your community, part of your neighborhood. We want you to be the stewards to take care of them as they're over time. But Metro Arts, the city of Sacramento, will also be there, has a plan in place to make sure that these things are maintained properly over time. Anyway, just some of the other walls. I did want to show you a couple dates here. The dates are moving here and there, but of course, the first date that's not on here is the RFQ will end next week, Monday. And then in March, we'll have a panel that will convene, and we'll select most likely a short list. If one particular artist seems to kind of rise to the top and everybody just agrees this is the person, then they may just go with that particular artist. But we'll have that panel. We actually have quite a rigorous panel that's going to be reviewing everybody's work and then discussing it and debating it and figuring out. And most likely what will happen is after that, we'll choose about 4 to 5 artists to bring in a week or two later to interview. And it was really important to me personally that we didn't ask for proposals. I just don't think you can do a proposal for something like this, because we're asking you to kind of involve community and neighborhood, and how can you do that when you're not kind of here working with them? So I know some of you are local and have that ability to already be engaged, and that is super awesome. But we want to make sure also that you have plenty of time to develop that process, and also develop it along with the community and with the neighborhood, so that through your process. So the artist, once that lead artist or artist team is selected, they'll do a minimum of 5 community workshop events where they'll engage the public, and that's kind of totally open. However you go about that as an artist is going to be up to you. So it might be, hey, I want to show my work and do a, show you, but it also might be, hey, here, I've got a bunch of clay. We're all going to make this, and then we're all going to talk about it afterwards. There's a million different ways you could go about this. But that's what'll happen through the initial design process. And then after that, the artist will develop their design, present their design both to the community, to all of you, and to all the people that were involved in the workshops, and to that panel. If it is approved and everybody's ready to move forward, we'll move forward. Then that artist will have at least 5 community engagement workshops again through the kind of fabrication and final design development phase. Our office is here will help in all the organization and all that, don't worry. But you as a lead artist would really be tasked with figuring out, what am I going to do? How am I going to engage people? How are we going to start to have this dialogue? And writing things down and stuff is fine, but we can go deeper than that. We can make things. We can have ancillary projects that come out of this that become then something also separate into themselves, and we even have potential for showing that work in other spaces. So again, there's the mural in the underpass. There's other walls, private walls along that corridor, but then there's the opportunity. The other thing I want to say is there will be some outreach artists. My thought is that the lead artist will most likely hire some assistants through the process, and that person will have his or her team of assistants that are working through the project. But then we'll also have dedicated outreach artists, 2 to 3, that lead artist will be able to choose, and with a panel. And we'll choose, and then those folks would contract directly with us, but they would kind of be under the leadership of the lead artist. So it's an exciting opportunity where the lead artist can have some other folks that could run some workshops. We've already talked with Washington Elementary about a year ago. We're going to be picking up the conversation with them again. The Boys and Girls Club. We've been trying to talk with some of the neighborhood and community organizations to make sure that we have different stakeholders and groups, and I was already mentioning Loaves and Fishes. I just wanted to show you this. Right now, May 21. All right, so we need to line up with the Complete Streets project for a certain portion on the underpass, but it doesn't mean that things can't happen outside before that and after that. The important thing is going to be for that Complete Streets, they'll have all the permitting done so we can be kind of working in that space installing. The other thing that I'm going to throw out there is that just because of the nature of this, we're going to encourage and almost kind of require some use of parachute cloth. It's a non-woven cloth that allow you to work in the studio, allow other people to help in different regards, and then we'll be able to install it. And we can have some workshops. If you're not familiar with that, that's not a big deal. But there's ways that we can do that and ways we can develop that process. So just the last thing I want to say is, we have the ability to really bring people closer together. We have the ability to take this corridor and allow both the neighborhood, the community, and local artists and artists nationally to play a role in how this is developed. I'm really excited for you all to be a part of this, and I hope that your excitement, I hope that you're equally as excited about this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing all the submissions throughout the process. Great. Thanks a lot. Why don't we just jump into some questions? If we could, I want to turn on that microphone over there. And yeah, and then we're just going to need to, do you see where that is? Okay, awesome.
Hi, I'm Shira. I have one question on the actual, so I was there and you mentioned something about blank canvas and what is by those trees. So you actually have the corridor that you go like inside and then you have the walls that are coming out. But then you also have that area where there are the trees, kind of, the slope, yes, thank you. And that's really rough kind of stuff. Is that, you mentioned blank canvas, I was like, oh, is that also part of what you want to be created on? Or?
So we have tossed around the idea of doing something on the slopes. There are other things happening. I think Rachel mentioned the blank canvas on the. We were not necessarily including the slopes to be painted on. Though painting those slopes is problematic in a number of ways. I'm not saying I would be totally against it. I don't think Rachel would be totally against the idea, but that's not the focus. The focus is the corridor, the underpass, and then if you have a way to kind of integrate the slopes or something like that, that would be totally fine. But it would be more walls that are in and around that area that really give an idea. The other thing is, I think there's a fence that's going to go up there as well.
Can I add a couple
Yeah.
things? Okay.
Let Rachel add some things. Just be careful of that back thing there.
So the
Perfect.
complete
Yeah.
street project is going to address the slopes, and what we're looking to do there, it hasn't yet been determined. So we do want it to work with the mural. So we don't want to have like maybe one has, I don't know, a cartoony feel, and then the other's very formal. We wouldn't want to have that. So we do want to make sure that they coordinate and they work well with each other. But we're looking at something like maybe some treatment on it, like river rock, or a form liner, which is a little bumpier. And the purpose would be, of course, to deter people from wanting to sit there. And there will be a fence going up about halfway up there, the area. I would say probably, I mean, if there's a brilliant brainstorm, we'd love to hear it, but your time would probably be better spent on the other parts of it.
Okay. Would that be additional funding to attend to the slopes or an additional project, or you'd like to see that?
Again, but if I could just say before you move it off, no.
Okay.
And just to add to Rachel's comment, so the project, the funding, the budget will be really up to you. There's $150,000 to do this after the artist has paid $20,000 for the design portion. It's a pretty good budget. If you were going to involve the slopes, let's say, in some painting aspect, that would just be one of the additional sites that you are recommending. I don't think that to just do the underpass, I don't think you can just do the underpass and say, yeah, that would 150. Yep. You got to look at this entire corridor. You got to think about how this whole corridor works. If for you it has to involve the slope in some way, then we could talk about that. That'll be part of the process. But you would be more likely looking at the underpass and other walls and other things that come out of that process. And then you would present a budget and say, this is how much it would cost, to do this. That's the idea. The artist presents the budget and says, I know I have potentially $150,000 to work with, but here's what my proposal is. Once you've already been selected as a lead artist, then that would be part of your design proposal. Yeah.
Any other questions, you guys?
I'm very excited about this project. The PR person where I used to work sent it to me, and I worked with an organization that helps mentally ill homeless adults. It used to be TLCS, now they're Hope Cooperative. I had to resign due to just how much it was taken from me, but in terms of working with Loaves and Fishes, Salvation Army, Mustard Seed and all that, I love this project. My ideas, I think I called you the other day, is basically to put together some painting sketches of the whole corridor, but also be able to talk to the different community participants. What is in my mind is, what about adding these different functions to it, as far as gardens, the river, in terms of like some of the canals coming through and whatnot. So for me, it's a big budget. For me, just what I would like to do initially is paint an idea of what the corridor would look like, including underneath the underpass, all the way out to what is the north part, and like the first light where you could go back behind Loaves and Fishes.
Yeah, I think generally that's about the area.
Is that open lot there that's really nothing in it part of it? You know, that this lot right over here that's just pretty much empty space. Every once in a while some folks camp there. You know, it's in between 12th and...
Yeah, so I think the lot you're referring to is actually where the RT station would go. Yeah, and so the only thing I would caution you on is just that at this stage, I wouldn't spend too much time kind of coming up with a proposal, because, you know, like I said, I mean, you can, but like you really would need to work with the neighborhood community through that process. And so to just kind of do it unilaterally, kind of without any dialogue, even though you have your own personal experiences, I totally get that, you know, will limit you. So just something to think about. That's why we have a pretty rigorous amount and time frame to allow people to, you know, develop that process as the lead artist, and then also opportunities for different people to get involved. But I just want to throw that out to you, that's really important, like to understand that, like at this stage, what the request for qualifications is really like just past work that you've done, an artist statement, and then a short 250-word statement just about your kind of way of working with community, you know, and that's what the application is. So I have some paper copies of the RFQ right there. Just look through that, what's necessary. That's what you should really kind of focus on. And then, you know, developing your proposal further will be awesome. Certainly if you had something, you want to include that as one of your images in the slides, you know, that's fine, but we're not asking for that, though.
Right. No, I appreciate that, because I want the collaboration.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I mean, if I got there, I want to be able to employ some of the people that are sleeping out here. That would be in my heart, you know, and that employment and retraining and education.
So I think we have the ability with this project the lead artist will have the ability to hire different people to be part of the project, and we'll also be able to have organizations that you could work through to, you know, so that you're not just literally grabbing somebody off the street. So that there's some organization, so there's some structure to how that happens. But I 100% agree with you, and that was my comment too about the economy, is that, you know, this really should drive both in kind of, you know, funded opportunities and also volunteer opportunities for people to get involved.
Oh yeah, because for me, I've done social work for a long time. When people have purpose in life and meaning, it changes everything in terms of how we look at stuff. So very thankful.
Absolutely. Thanks.
When the proposals are sent in and everything's settled, who is actually looking at them and making the decisions?
Yeah, so we're assembling a panel. Right now it's looking like a panel of 8, possibly 9 people. It's getting bigger by the day. So I'll have a kind of mixture of art professionals that work within the arts and have many years, and then also community representatives and business kind of representatives, as well as a commissioner from the Sacramento Metropolitan Arts Commission. All those people will convene. I, for example, am not on the panel. I'll help facilitate and everything, but I don't vote. Nobody from Metro Arts will be a voting member of that panel. But that panel will get assembled, and the way our panels run is we show the work, we bring it down to a shorter and shorter list, and we have a rigorous debate, back and forth about what this person's work is like and what the potential is like and this and that, and that's how we'll kind of arrive at that final decision, which will most likely be a short list of folks to come and interview. Then those folks will come, each one of you would come then and interview to the panel, and the panel would ask you some questions. So I mean, we're looking at, one, your past work is going to be super important, but also your ability to kind of take on a project like this that's multifaceted and has lots of different parts and lots of different players and people working together.
Okay. And will those meetings be public or private?
The panel discussion is not going to be public. It's an opportunity for those panelists to talk and rigorously debate the submissions, and it's not really appropriate for for other people to kind of sit in on that discussion. We as Metro Arts facilitate that kind of opportunity, and I think I do a pretty good job of putting together a diverse group of panelists, and then the artist is chosen out of that selection process. The panelists will be made public, so people will know who those panelists are, and if a particular panelist feels that they have a conflict, they have an ability to recuse themselves from any kind of voting for that particular person. And the conflict is usually an economic conflict of some type or another, that they would economically benefit. But we take that part really seriously. I appreciate you bringing it up because I think it's important to know that panel process is really important. It also is what adds a lot more time to our city projects, right? Because we do take the time, we assemble this panel, we bring people in both locally and really around the country as well to come and debate and discuss the submissions.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hi. Thank you for placing so much importance on the community engagement aspect of this project. I want to make sure I understand the distinction you made. You talked about roughly 10 community engagement, events. And then you made a distinction between 5, as I understood it to be sort of like an opportunity to spur the imagination of the community, and 5 maybe further down the road that are getting closer to implementation. Am I understanding that right? I just want to make sure I understand like the nature of those 10.
Yeah, I can clarify. Absolutely. So, and I can't take credit. I happen to have worked in kind of community arts and working with communities for over 20 years, but it's these folks that really brought us in and said, we want you to be part of this. So that community engagement part was just really something awesome that the city and all the different stakeholders really wanted to happen too. With that said, I had to set some minimum, right? So people know kind of what to gauge. So the idea is that you have a minimum of 5 community engagement workshops, whatever you want to call them, discussion opportunities, more workshops, I like that, but in the design phase. And there's a number of months, and it's almost 6 months worth of design phase, where you as the artist would be able to work with community members and develop ideas. I would be kind of bringing you around to stakeholders, bringing you into City Hall to meet with different folks that have been part of the project, and then you would design these community engagement events. You need 5 in that design phase to be in compliance with our contractual agreement, and then 5 in the kind of fabrication and installation phase of the project. If you want to do more, I would hope that would be certainly something good. And then with these, outreach artists, you'll have the ability to have, other kind of satellite, outreach stuff as well. I mean, I don't want it to be something where I'm kind of like sitting there counting. I mean, it should be something, but it's a very appropriate question. I appreciate you asking. But it should be something that obviously the lead artist needs to want to do that kind of stuff, because that's what this project is about. It's that those kind of community engagement opportunities are where kind of a lot of the ideas will come out of. I'm going to say one last thing. I don't expect, and I don't think any of us here expect, that when you just take all these ideas that the artist just has to do everything people say. That's not the idea. Remember that I was talking about the scales? It's really the idea that the artist kind of takes it all in and then in some way, transforms that and kind of is able to kind of create something out of that process that may, have different levels of relationship to what was done, to what was discussed. Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Hi, I have a couple questions. One, you mentioned the parachute material. Are you considering that as part of the permanent installation under there, or as part of other areas of the corridor that can be included? You talked about the parachute painting, the parachute is possibly.
Yeah, it's 100% permanent. So the cloth is if you're not familiar with this, it's a mixture of cellulose fibers and acrylic fibers, polyester fibers, and those fibers go together. It's a non-woven cloth, and then you prime it, and then you can paint on it, and then when you install it with a heavy gloss gel, like a heavy body gel, it'll dry and adhere to the wall and become almost like a layer of paint. Now, with that said.
Similar to like we were talking about an adhesion to the actual surface.
It is adhesion to the surface. It's almost as if you just, what I would think of it as taking this kind of layer of paint and putting it up there, and then once it's up there, it's not moving. It's like it's there, and then you could touch up and do things. And I have set aside some money to do a kind of parachute cloth workshop that would not come out of your budget. That I will bring in, a person skilled in working in this. I myself have worked in it for many years, but I would bring somebody in to lead a workshop on that. So you as the lead artist and your team would have that person to kind of, go through a day of training, and you would be 100% ready to use that material once you were ready to start.
And just so that you understand is that you have, if you're doing it on both sides, closing down whether the light rail tracks, which there's only like, I don't know, is it 4 hours during the wee hours of the morning when trains aren't going through, and just the volume of traffic that, it's going to be on a weekend to the installation, that because we just can't have people out there painting on the wall. It's just not functionally, and so he came up with, that's the origin of it. It's not because we want to dictate that, but that's the only way that's going to happen.
The resource to do the installation art, right? It's not necessarily painting on those walls. It's to do it on that parachute.
Well, okay, so you are painting, and you should think of it as painting on the walls, because you're painting on the parachute cloth, then you're installing the parachute cloth, and then you need to do touch-ups and things like that. And some sections can be done separately. We could get into that. And then any of you that are interested, let's say if you end up not being the lead artist or not on the lead artist team, you can come to that. I mean, I'm happy to have that workshop be open to folks too. So we could talk about that. But I think it's just a technique. It's a process that, exactly like Celia said, we had to find a solution for this underpass. And although we have the permitting to shut down the street, it's still going to be limited in the amount of time, because there will be trains that go by there and things like that. So it gives us a lot more leverage.
Bracket of time is to actually install?
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, we'll have to, I think.
I'm just, as part of, not to say like, oh, I want, but that also includes my ideas of thoughts of what I can and can't.
Absolutely. You would have sufficient time to install. Installing won't be a problem. It'll just be, we'll just need to work around that schedule. And then again, that underpass is hopefully only one portion of a number of things that are happening along that corridor in this project, right? So you're doing the underpass, but then you're also doing other walls that may have parachute cloth elements, may not, and certainly won't have the same kind of permitting challenges that the underpass does.
If you make it to the short list, will there be opportunity to ask more questions to the panel?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, so absolutely you should. I mean, we're interviewing you, and then you're interviewing us, right? And so I think that's really important to make sure that you're like 100% ready to do the project. And absolutely, we can have a kind of dialogue. If you have some questions as a shortlisted artist, then that would be a great time to do it. Plus, I'm available. If you have some questions about the project, I'm available by email or phone as well.
I'm Greta Lachin. I'm Vice President of River District Board. And you briefly mentioned upkeep and deterrent paint on the surface for graffiti.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about the upkeep part? I would like to suggest that perhaps you budget in washing regularly, because frankly that tunnel is often used as a toilet, and the surface will be marred by that. And also trash collection is a huge issue. And have you considered cameras for both security and to maybe catch some graffiti vandals?
So let me answer each of those in turn. So first of all, in terms of power washing, I met extensively and prepared an extensive materials report and maintenance report to Public Works. So we have a plan in place at least for 10 years between Metro Arts and Public Works in the city of Sacramento in how we will tackle this. They're regularly power washing, and they will have a regular kind of process in place for that. We also, as Metro Arts, will have a procedure in place for any kind of graffiti that needs to be dealt with. In terms of the and there'll be as you with the River District and other folks will have specific contact numbers that people should be able to call to say, hey, there's some graffiti on the Underpass mural or some graffiti on another part, or there's some issue. You'll be able to kind of call us to let us know so that we can kind of deal with that. As far as the trash, my real hope, we're not going to create a trash cleanup program. But my hope is that neighborhood and community involvement will be such that people want to keep that area clean. And our hope is, I know you're here, but here's the thing. We're looking at transforming this corridor. That's the idea, right? And we need to be able to do this project so that we can at least try to see if it's possible to transform that corridor. And ultimately, I can't sit here and just say, yes, the city is going to have this rigorous trash cleanup program as soon as we start doing our project. But I would hope that as people see that corridor developing, that there's more care and interest in it being more cleanliness being an important part of it, and it being maintained. As to your issue of cameras, I really don't know. I think that's out of the scope of what the art kind of group would be doing. I certainly would be happy to have that discussion with Public Works and with you all through the River District to see if that's something that would be of interest and would be possible. Certainly our budget is not going to include that. But I'm happy. Well, I mean,
I understand.
yeah, I mean, we need to really focus on the art component, and I think we really want to make sure that in that collaborative process, then we identify other areas where maybe the city could help and assist in ways that maybe they aren't right.
Rachel had to go to another business meeting, or I would address some of these questions to her. But I do think that it's useful at this stage to at least, when you're forming alliances with politicians, to make them aware of expectations, perhaps, that this, if we're going to put this much money into this, then we need help from the city to be aware of issues like toileting and trash.
Sure.
So it just doesn't get.
Absolutely, but I want to make something really clear here. The focus is on engaging neighborhoods and communities. That's where the focus of the money is coming from, and that's where it's going to. And so it wouldn't be appropriate for me to use that money and to put in cameras and that type of thing.
No, and
so
I wasn't suggesting that.
Yeah.
What I think I was suggesting is when you're talking to the politicians involved and the business
absolutely.
and people like that it is their job to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I just want to manage expectations. I want to be completely upfront and honest with you about what I think we could accomplish here. But absolutely, Greg, I 100% want to continue to have those conversations. And I think that we've already had some kind of really rigorous conversations with folks at City Hall, both our politicians and also staff, about kind of ways that we can really work together and collaboratively to further develop the corridor in a positive direction. Thanks. All right, so just a minute left here, because I do want to be, it's just about 2:30, so we got a minute left. Do we have maybe one last question? Okay. Or can we have time for maybe two more? No, I just, it's just that I want to record. We're recording it, so if you could speak into the microphone, that would be great. So just 2 minutes here, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the meeting.
I'm just wondering, as we develop or choose the kinds of slides that will be in our submission to you, where you would, probably most of us who are been making artwork for a long time have like a wide range of things that we could be providing, but obviously you're wanting to get a sense about our work that we've done that is about community engagement. But can you give me a sense about the broad? And you're not asking for us to give proposals. So what I'm wondering is, what is the range of types of work that you're kind of hoping to have us emphasize, or the range you'd like to see?
I would think first and foremost that the work should probably show your strengths in two-dimensional media. Although you may choose to include a project that had sculptural elements or something, that's totally fine. But since this project will be limited to kind of two-dimensional kind of painting focused media, that you would want to definitely show some examples of that. Those examples don't all have to be kind of community focused, kind of community engagement focused work at all. I mean, you really want to give a picture of yourself as an artist. And as many of us, you know, we don't fit into just one little box. I mean, you do different type of work, and I think the panel will 100% understand that. The panel wants to know that, one, is this a person that could work with community and engage community? But then two, do they have a kind of professional level of experience in terms of the development of their work to where aesthetically the work is also going to be transformative for that corridor? I mean, I think that's something really important to recognize. And then I'm happy to talk. I'll be here afterwards. We could talk briefly. I'm happy to give you some other suggestions in terms of that. I mean, but ultimately, I think those are the two most important things.
And to the community, and tell me if I'm wrong, you haven't necessarily gone into this, but the diversity of how you interacting, right? Because every community is different. And in this community, there's going to be some different communities, and so and it's not a cookie cutter, but what is your approach? So, something that then can to step off and say, here's my approach to working with communities.
That's exactly right, and that's what that 250-word statement is about. So you have your artist statement, and then that statement about your approach to kind of community engagement, and which might discuss specific examples of things that you've done in the past or things that you might do, that type of thing. Okay, and then you were going to be the last question, I mean, at least recorded.
Thank you guys so much for doing this. It's really helpful. My name is Francesca Gomez. I'm with Trust Your Struggle Collective, and we also, my partner and I, are on 1810 Gallery, 2 blocks away from the location, actually. But my question was, in developing ideas for these community workshops, I wonder what other community organizations you guys are already working with aside from Mustard Seed, just to help tailor these ideas.
There's almost kind of quarterly a group along A Street. So that's we include the Salvation Army, Women's Empowerment. Let's see, even General Produce, who owns property there, as well as Loaves and Fishes. So many of those. Anybody else that you were working with?
And we talked briefly with Washington Elementary and then the Boys and Girls Club as well. So, and we're open to other kind of stakeholder groups in the area, and certainly we're hoping that our partners with the River District, and and then Alkali Flat, Mansion Flat on the other side of the underpass. We want more suggestions. I mean, there's no limit really to the possibilities here. Certainly the folks that are in this area are going to be a main concentration of stakeholders, but we're open to other groups as well. But I think that's a fair amount of stakeholder groups to involve.
And
so,
as you mentioned, the Boys and Girls Club, and then Washington Neighborhood Center there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and so I was just going to go ahead and conclude. We'll be here. I know Celia, has to run off to another series of meetings, but look, thank you all so much for coming. This is a bit of an experiment. We're just trying to have these kind of community engagement, like these panel discussions and question and answer opportunities for the projects that come up at Mural Arts. I hope you find them helpful. We'll put the recording on the website. Don't be too hard on us because we're still trying to work through how that goes. This is all just my own equipment. So we're just putting it together. We're just making it happen because I feel like it's important. Not everybody can be here. It was super awesome to see all the people that were able to make it today, but we're trying to find ways that people can see this stuff in the future. There's some mandarin oranges over there from a tree at my house, so please enjoy that, some water, and thanks a lot for coming.